Hello and welcome to an episode of Historically Marked. I am Jason and I am in Parkview Cemetery in Peoria, Illinois, and I'm going to visit the grave site of a woman whose name is on one of the most successful charities of today. Her name is Susan Komen, and for many years I was questioning, I was like, well, who was Susan Komen? Well, I'm about to find out in this video. I'm just not too far from her grave site. There are two markers right where she's buried, one erected by the Illinois State Historical Society. So yes, I'll go ahead and tell you the story. Join me. And just ahead of time, I want to apologize if it's really windy because it is about 35 degrees here in Peoria. It's end of February, and this is not too far from the east entrance to the cemetery, so it can be easy to find because of this historical marker. But I'm going to go ahead and read it. Susan G. Komen. Susan Goodman Komen wanted to make the world a better place. The active civic leader, daughter, sister, wife, and young mother of two from Peoria, Illinois, left a legacy she never imagined. Her life changed the way the world talks about and treats breast cancer. Born October 31st, 1943, Susan, or Susie, was diagnosed with breast cancer in 1977, a time when little was known or understood about the disease. People didn't say the words breast cancer aloud, and many thought it was contagious. On her deathbed, Susie asked her sister to promise to do everything she could to end breast cancer, so that others would not suffer as she did. After 9 operations, 3 courses of chemotherapy and radiation, Susie lost her 3-year battle on August 4th, 1980 at the age of 36. In 1982, to keep her promise, Susie's sister, Ambassador Nancy G. Brinker, established the Susan G. Komen Breast Cancer Foundation. The organization was renamed Susan G. Komen for the Cure in 2007. The promise between two sisters launched the global breast cancer movement, and it has become the promise of millions around the world. Susan G. Komen for the Cure is the world's largest grassroots network of breast cancer survivors and activists, fighting to save lives and end breast cancer forever. And it is the largest source of nonprofit funds dedicated to the fight against breast cancer in the world. This was sponsored by the organization as well as Parkview Cemetery and the Illinois State Historical Society, placed here in September 2009. So come with me, and I'll go ahead and take you straight to the site, the burial site. This is where she's buried right here. I'll get to that plaque in just a sec. But next to her are her parents, Marvin Goodman. He passed away in 2007. And then Eleanor was her mother. She passed away in 2015. From October 31st, 1943, or Halloween, August 4th, 1980. In life, a cherished daughter, beloved mother, and devoted sister. In death, a promise and a race for the cure so that others might live. In the hearts of millions, a name of love and compassion that shall live forever. Very nice. There's also a bench dedicated to Komen right there, as well as one for Goodman. Now, if you go to the Susan Komen website, the charity's website, you'll see more of a memoir or biography put together by her sister Nancy, or Nan as she was affectionately called by Susan and her family. But Susie was the oldest sister of Nancy, and they were very close. I mean, they called each other every day. And Susan was best described as she was beautiful, kind, loving, not just to me, but to everyone. I mean, she was the perfect older sister. She was the star of our hometown of Peoria, Illinois. She was the homecoming queen in high school. She had many friends. And I mean, she was like pretty much Nan was pretty much more of a tomboy, so to speak. But then Susie went away to college, and she was well missed. But then she came back to Peoria eventually and got a job modeling locally. She eventually married her college sweetheart Stan Komen, and they were still close. But then then came that time when she was 33 years old, and she got the worst phone call of her life from Susie. It said, one Tuesday afternoon, her doctor had found a lump in her breast that was not a cyst. He recommended a biopsy. But unfortunately, it would be an uphill battle for her because, I mean, her doctor, who they went to all their life, you know, I mean, really not many doctors knew what to do at the time as far as like breast cancer and all. But they even went to the Mayo Clinic, which is in Minnesota. And unfortunately, I mean, they tried different ways to help cure her. Susan also went to a hospital in Houston, Texas. But unfortunately, by that time, the cancer had spread to other organs. And it was there that Susan, even though she could hardly speak, she was frail, she said, you know, I want to make sure nobody suffers through this horrible disease. And like I had mentioned on the marker, breast cancer was rarely talked about. I mean, like Shirley Temple Black, who was a famous child star in the 1930s, I mean, she lived a very long life, but in the early 1970s, she came out as battling breast cancer, even though she successfully recovered. And another person to have gone through breast cancer was First Lady Betty Ford, because she publicly came out and she had finished a successful bout with breast cancer. I mean, she had to go through a mastectomy as well, and she pretty much felt that she had to make it public. And that, of course, inspired Susie. I mean, she said one time, well, if Mrs. Ford can admit she has breast cancer and tell the whole world she intends to fight it, well, then so can I. And like I said, I mean, even during the 1930s and 40s, the word cancer was considered, saying cancer on the air was a big no-no, even on television years later. But in the early 1950s, the New York Times, they at one time refused to publish an ad for a breast cancer support group, stating that it would not print the words breast or cancer. And a little more history on the timeline. 1969, the modern mammogram was invented. Sometime during the 1970s, the standard treatment for breast cancer is a one-step surgical process in which a patient is put under anesthesia for a biopsy and upon a positive result is immediately subjected to a radical mastectomy without consultation. And it wasn't until 1975 that breast cancer patient Rose Kushner challenged the standard one-step process. She opted for a less invasive modified mastectomy and published the details of her experience in breast cancer, a personal history and investigative report. So in 1982, right after Nan started or established the Susan G. Komen Breast Cancer Foundation, the charity awards its first research grant for $28,000 to Dr. Gary Spitzer at the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center. A year later, in 1983, the first race for the cure took place in Dallas, Texas. 800 participants were there. And then in 1986, October became Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And to this day, there are more than 150 Komen Race events that are held internationally, not just here in the US, but the Bahamas, Belgium, Georgia meaning the Middle East country, Germany, Greece, Tanzania, you name it, pretty much everywhere. So yes, the charity has definitely made a mark internationally thanks to this young woman whose life was taken away senselessly. Now, I'm sure you probably know somebody who has succumbed to the disease, and unfortunately, yes, I know many who have, and including friends and family. But there's also, you've also heard this before. I mean, for women, mostly just, check every now and then. I work retail during the day, and one of my frequent customers, she's in her mid-40s, but I mean, she comes through all the time. She's got a really great family and all. I'm not going to say her name to protect her privacy, but she has survived breast cancer twice. She first found a lump on her breast at the age of 36, and then she recovered successfully, and then again at the age of 39, it went through. She had to go through it again, unfortunately. But she is well today, and on her Facebook page as well as Facebook groups, she does encourage heavily for women to go out and get checked or check yourself every now and then, because you just never know. I mean, the earlier the better. I'm sure you've heard that before many times. And even though, yes, this is mostly found in women, I mean, men can also get breast cancer as well. The most famous male to have suffered from breast cancer was Rod Roddy, who was one of the Price is Right announcers. So yes, it goes for everyone. You gotta check every now and then, and go to a doctor right away if there's anything wrong. All right, I am Jason, visiting the gravesite of Susan Komen at Parkview Cemetery in Peoria, Illinois. Sign off.